Hey, this is Matt. Another great author interview is coming up next. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment.
The School of Fiction.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Devon Wilke, and you're listening to the School of Fiction channel. Hey,
Uh,
Matt Posner.
yeah, hi, Lorraine. So good to have you.
Good to be here.
Yeah, we were introduced by Mark Barry, actually.
One of my
After
one of my favorite writers.
yeah, a wonderful writer and wonderful human being. And I enjoyed the fact that I'm getting to meet people now who I only knew online and actually have conversations with them. So
Yeah, me too. Me
to
too.
interview him was something actually because he's in the UK, so we had to work the timing. You're in California. You said you're in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Los Angeles area, Playa del Rey neighborhood
Oh,
specifically. Yeah.
that has it been a very busy area, a lot of stuff going on there. I mean, obviously I'm in New York, same, but how were the wildfires for you?
Well, we could see them over up on the hill across the bay, but they didn't endanger us at all. But just recently, my husband and I drove down Pacific Coast Highway, and boy, I'll tell you, it is like driving through a war zone. It just looks so terrible. I mean, so many places are just still sitting there like burnt out hulls, with cars and everything. It's really tragic. I have a good friend who lost her home, her sister lost her home, and her parents lost their home all in the same neighborhood. And so it's pretty tragic. But we were not in the line of fire, literally. So we were safe.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I can imagine, what it must be like to be in that situation because I grew up in Florida with hurricanes.
I was just going to say, it seems
Yeah.
like, and I was born in the Midwest and grew up there, and there were tornadoes there, and here we have earthquakes and wildfires where you are there, or on the East Coast it's hurricanes, it's and the South, it's like every region has their disasters, and none of us escape completely.
Yeah, I moved to New York just about a year and a half before 9/11, so I've been
Oh
through a
God,
lot of the history, definitely.
yeah,
Ray,
that's a
you are
seminal
a
experience.
multi-talented individual, and I've had a number of people on here who aren't just authors, but also have other arts they participate in. So let's take a look at your website and
Okay,
start talking about you.
okay.
Okay. So it's your name, LorraineDevonWilke.com. All right. Words, pictures, and music. Where should we start?
I'll let you decide.
Oh, okay. So we'll start with photography, I think.
Yeah.
Go through here.
I started taking professional pictures about 10, no wait, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And got really involved in it for a while. And in the last couple of years, I was the in-house photographer of a digital magazine and did a lot of portrait work for people and, showed at a few galleries, won a few awards. It's kind of gotten put aside, put a little back burnered as I've been focusing more on books lately and also my band, my music, but it's always there. And I'm always adding to the galleries and hoping that people will go visit them and find things that they like to hang on their walls.
Absolutely. That's so gallery worthy. And this is one of the hobbies that we share, although I'm definitely amateur and you're professional grade. But
Well,
photography, once again, when I was a new indie author, I made a poetry book. I used my own photos for it, which were not as good as yours by far, but it was still really enjoyable to do that.
yeah. Well, both you're looking at After the Sucker Punch and Hysterical Love. Both those covers are my photographs that were used for the cover art.
Like I
So
said,
that was fun.
this is your first book, as it says the first book. This
Correct.
is your
Yeah.
second. Do they all
Yeah.
like that? The third book and
Right there.
the
Yeah.
latest book and the next book. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm reading Chick Singer right now. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Okay.
So
Okay.
under performance, this is musical performances.
Well, it was also I started a separate page for my band. Originally, when I put that performance page up, I was doing acting as well. I mean, I was a theater major in college. I acted a lot throughout my career. But after COVID hit, I did a show in San Diego right before COVID hit. I was there for about 5 months doing an original musical, and then COVID hit. And since the pandemic, the theater scene in LA has not really rebounded very vibrantly, unfortunately. So I haven't done anything in the acting world since then. So that page stands as sort of a tribute to previous work and hopefully new work that'll come up. And it also features a bit about my musical background.
All right. So you started writing fiction with the intent of publication about when?
It was well, that after the Sucker Punch, I published in 2014. I had been writing screenplays throughout my career. In the 90s, I had a screenplay produced in Seattle that I was a co-star in, and wrote several screenplays that were optioned and went into development, but ultimately were never brought to the screen, which is unfortunate. But that kind of got me started in the world of fictional writing, and then in 2010 I decided to start writing after the Sucker Punch. I had wanted to write a novel for a long time, but I never felt I had a topic that was big enough for a novel. And then I came upon one, and that was the spark that set off after the Sucker Punch. So I started writing that in about 2010, and then self-published it in 2014. I tried to get an agent and wanted to do a traditional publishing deal, but like so many of us, I shopped and queried and did all of that. And while there was some nips of interest here and there, after searching for an agent for years, I finally decided to self-publish it, and I was really glad I did. It was actually a really successful book, and and I also self-published my second book, Hysterical Love. So
I'm just going to dip into the point about screenwriting for a moment and
sure.
the struggles that you had, because I'm absolutely certain those are mirrored by most aspiring screenwriters.
Oh, no
Kind
doubt.
of gotten the impression that the purpose of writing original screenplays is to get their attention, after which they ignore your screenplay and hire you for something else if they like you. Do you think that's true?
I don't know. I don't know. That didn't happen for me. I wouldn't have been adverse to that, to be honest. But it didn't happen for me because back when I was doing it, which was the 90s, the independent film world was very vibrant at that time. There was a lot going on. There were a lot of indie film companies. There was a lot of interest in indie films at that time. And so you felt like it was a very ripe field for getting scripts made and produced. That has changed. That is no longer the case. And so I don't know what the screenwriting world is like now. I have zero connection to it at this point. I know a few people that are doing it, and some of them successfully. But I stopped pursuing that back in the early 2000s, and that's when I went into writing novels, because I felt like it's a field that's just like every field in the creative industries. It's a field that's difficult to break into, and even after getting a film made and getting good reviews for it and getting picked out by Variety as somebody to watch, I came back to LA because that was shot up in Seattle. Came back to LA thinking that, okay, here we go. I co-wrote it, I co-starred in it. I have 3 songs in it that I performed. Everything that I do is on display in this film. This is going to be my calling card. This is going to catapult me to success. And it didn't. People were just kind of like, well, let me know when it's in a theater and we'll check it out. And it never got a big distribution deal. It did well on the festival circuit. It played in a few cities around the country and a few cities in Europe, but it didn't break out. And so neither did I. And so I wrote a few screenplays after that, but was never able to crack the code. It's difficult. It's difficult, as every creative industry is difficult, but
Absolutely.
I didn't find it a launch pad to a better job, unfortunately for me.
No, well, I think most people don't. There was a time around the time you're referring to, early 2000s, I listened to some interviews with successful screenwriters, and they seem to always be saying, "Oh yeah, well, my friend was working at this company and he thought of me and he brought me in." I'm just like,
Yeah.
that what it's all about is you already know somebody who's already in there, rather
Oh yeah.
it doesn't seem to be
Contacts.
very merit based at all in
No, I mean, I
screenwriting.
think we all have learned that, those of us who've been around for a while, that contacts are really it. I mean, I think it's probably wise to have some inherent talent you can tap into, but it's not necessary. That's a fact. I mean, there's a lot of people that get doors open for them because they know people, or they're the children of people, or they're, dating people, that only, the talent is not the front runner of what it is they're doing. Um,
And if you have
yeah,
talent and you
yeah,
run across someone who doesn't have it, they might not like you. So
yeah,
that
I
would,
don't know. It's tough. When I was younger, I used to get into these discussions and think a lot about, the unfairness of the industry. But, as you get older, you get more circumspect and more, I don't know, resigned to the realities of what you've decided to pursue. And if you leap into the creative industries, you have to do so knowing that fairness is not a factor.
no.
It's really about persistence and doggedness and continuing to go after what you want and hopefully delivering the goods. And if you get lucky and something breaks, fantastic, you know.
These are absolutely wonderful book covers.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I
I'm
think they are too.
This one in particular, Alchemy of Noise, is really, really draws me in for some reason. Maybe it's because I know that's Chicago, not New York, but
Right.
I
Yeah.
still connect to these to
Oh,
city
thank you.
skylines
Yeah.
as a New Yorker, and I like Chicago. I just don't haven't had much chance to be there.
Yeah. Well, that
But
book takes place in Chicago, so it was important to me to have a cover that kind of spoke to immediately set the place. And I love that photograph. That isn't one of mine. It's a great photograph, but it's not one of mine.
yeah, and so Chick Singer is the one that you shared with me that I've already gotten into. So where does this cover come from?
It was designed by someone at the publishing company. I didn't, that's not my
Oh,
photograph and not my
okay.
design, but I loved what she did, and I thought it was a
It
good depiction of what the story's about, which is
it does look a little bit like you though, doesn't it?
I don't know, does it?
I think so. I'm thinking,
She's
yeah.
younger.
Uh,
I'll take it.
no, yeah, I know. But the protagonist of the story is a woman who started out as a young singer, and
Yeah.
then she became a mother, and she's helping out her daughter with difficulties, and yeah, it's very compelling. I was drawn in as soon as the mother and the daughter started talking. I'm like, oh, I like this.
Oh, good,
What
good.
was the
Yeah.
genesis of this book?
It started as a screenplay, going back to the screenplay conversation. Someone had suggested, kind of gave me a funny prompt. We were talking, and they said, wouldn't it be funny if someone posted your old music online? And it went, and it got, it hit. And I thought that was a pretty intriguing idea. And so I wrote a screenplay. It was originally called A Minor Rebellion, which in the story is the name of well, I won't give it away because
Hmm.
there's some things in the story that I like readers to discover. But I wrote this screenplay called A Minor Rebellion, and it was really a successful screenplay for me in terms of getting attention, getting people's interest. A lot of people were interested in it. It got optioned. Again, wasn't made, but it was a story I loved. And over the years, I kept updating it because it starts in the 80s and then it moves forward to contemporary time. So I had to keep aging up the characters as actual time was going by. And then at some point I thought, oh my God, I can't age it up anymore without it making no sense. And then my sister suggested to me, she goes, well, why don't you just take the kids out of the house? Because in the original story, the kids were grade school and high school, grow everybody up. And so that was like, of course. And so that's when I decided I didn't want to lose the story and I no longer wanted to pursue it as a screenplay. So I decided to adapt it as a novel. And it was very difficult to do. I've adapted two screenplays to novels. Hysterical Love was originally a screenplay. And it's really challenging to adapt a screenplay to a novel versus adapting a novel to a screenplay, which I've never done. Um, but I finally found it. You gotta search through the different iterations of it until you finally find the road in. And once I found that with Chick Singer, it was exciting because I really expanded on the story, expanded, of course, when you're writing a novel versus a screenplay, you have the freedom to really delve into characters, delve into internal thought, delve into way more things than you can in a screenplay, which is just words and action.
Oh, I know, and you can develop more individual style and narrative pacing and stuff like that.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
yours was very, it was very polished, very accomplished. I just
Thank you very
had this
much. I
feeling
appreciate that.
you knew exactly what you wanted to say. There was an economy of language, that, and
Yeah.
I think after the prologue, I started reading the first chapter, and I'm just like, I can see all the story beats lined up one after the other. There's that thing that we needed. We needed that. We needed that. We needed that. So you just hit all the points perfectly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the story changed so much from the screenplay. And I think by making the daughter, by growing everybody up and the daughter being a full-grown adult and how that interplay between her and her mother, a lot of people misunderstand. I mean, I've had a couple people say, oh, the mother quit the business because she had a baby. And actually, the story is much deeper than that, and there's much more complexity to what happened to her career when she started, which is something I want readers to discover. I don't reveal that because it's kind of an interesting story point. I like readers to come upon it, which basically the readers come upon it at the same time the daughter does, because the daughter doesn't understand why her mom gave up her dream and she feels like it's her fault. And so that revelation through the story is really important to me to kind of happen in real time with the reader and the daughter. And I think it's a really interesting relationship. And what I enjoyed about writing it in this iteration was I had a chance to write sort of parallel story arcs for the mother and the daughter. They're both kind of going through major changes in their lives, both individually and together. And that was um, an interesting task to give myself as a writer, and I enjoyed it a lot.
All right. So, what genre do you think you would want to use for your fiction? Do you have a one or multiple genres that you consider to be, your native territory, let's say?
Well, mostly my books get shoved into the women's fiction territory, which I kind of I don't love only because I think it creates this illusion that it's for women and not for everybody. And I don't, that's not true of my work, but it tends to focus on female protagonists. So immediately when you have a female protagonist and you're telling a kind of human story about real life, it gets put into the women's fiction category, and that's okay because women are a huge reading population. My second book, Hysterical Love, actually had a male protagonist, and it's written in first person, which was a really interesting assignment as a writer. So that one, I don't know. I think that one just got put in general fiction. But my next book, which is coming out not for a couple years, actually, I don't know why these things take so long, but it's a departure for me because it's psychological suspense. And I will be interested to see how that goes because it was something I got sparked by a real life thing, a real life town. There's a little town in California called Harmony that has a population of 18, and it's been population 18 for decades. And every time we drive by, I say to my husband, how can a town keep a population of 18 forever? How does that happen? And I said, you could write a really good, creepy story about that. And he said, write it. So I started writing it as a short story, and then it just grew and grew and grew. And it turned into a novel. And it's not Harmony. I don't want anybody from Harmony to take offense. I created a fictional town and put it in a fictional place, but I explored the story of why that's the case. And it's kind of one of those psychological questions of is something real or has it been imagined? And it's very twisty and dark, and which is again a real departure for me because all my previous novels, I mean, The Alchemy of Noise was also a slight departure in that it's a more socio-political, I call it a socio-political love story. It has a lot of kind of contemporary themes that are going on in the world with police profiling and interracial relationship that gets pummeled by things that happen out on the street. And so it was a bit of a departure too. But my stories tend to be grounded in real life, everyday life. I'm not a genre writer. I write what I enjoy reading most, which is kind of real life novels about not real people, but people that are the kind of people we'd meet on the street.
I
So
mentioned
that's
in
I
my interview with Mark, sorry, Aristotle's notion of what feels real to us rather than what is real. Uh, I've always
yeah.
I've always kind of looked at it that way. This is a true story might not feel as authentic
Exactly.
because we want our stories to tell about life the way we perceive it or the way we
Yeah.
feel about it.
Yeah.
I think
Well, I
that,
used to, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
I don't
off.
know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I used to do a lot of script consulting back in the day. And I remember I used to get this comment from some writers where they'd say, I would give them critique on something in their screenplay, and they'd say, but that really happened. And I'd say, but whether it really happened or it's real or not, it doesn't read. It doesn't read the way it needs to read. So it's just a funny, going back to what you just said, that sometimes real life does not translate in exactness when you're writing fiction. And that's true.
It's true. And it's definitely true for dialogue, which is our
Yes.
craft discussion today.
Yes.
And you were good enough to put together the material that we were going to talk about for this.
Oh, good.
You and I are both dialogue specialists, and my first interview actually was E. Wade, who is also a dialogue specialist. So I think we should have a good discussion back and forth about how to make this kind of thing happen. So
Good.
I'm gonna just let me know when you want me to move on to the slide, and
Okay. You go
uh,
right
uh,
ahead.
I hand it off to you. This is the first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that I think all of my years in screenwriting really helped me in the arena of dialogue because, as you know, screenplays are largely, as I said earlier, dialogue and action, and that's about it. You don't get to go into the internal workings of a character. You've got to put it all on the page with words and action. And so, over the years of doing that, I think I honed my ability to listen to people and then translate that into the written word. And so the first thing is really listen to conversations and speech patterns of a wide range of people because when you're reading something and the dialogue is clunky and doesn't flow, it's usually because the person has written something that doesn't necessarily match the way real people talk, and so I think that's the first step is for a writer is just start paying attention to the way people talk, really listen. And it's great to do when you're in groups because no one's asking you to talk all the time, so you can sit back and just listen and watch and see how the cadence of speech, the way the rhythms are, the way people interrupt each other, the way they stop and stumble even in their own sentences, and just become an observer of conversation. That's the first step to writing good dialogue, I think.
I'm going to throw in addition to that, that the place where it most likely does not happen for a new writer or a writer who's developing in skills is info dumps.
What
Because
is an info dumps? Explain that to
info
me.
dump when the character just starts giving a whole bunch of background.
Oh, yeah, exposition. We call
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exposition is
So,
good. Info dump is when you do it the wrong way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, exposition can be bad too because it's like I've seen that too, where it's like, it's so obvious, it's so on the nose that that's what's happening, and it's not the way real people talk. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's where you notice it for sure.
Okay, so cadence, how the voice rises and falls, rhythm, mumbles, stops, interruptions, and vernacular. In other words, slang or so vernacular technically is subcategories of language, like local, like
Yeah.
neighborhood languages or languages based on an ethnic group, and so on, so on. And this is always challenging to learn the vernacular that does not in the community you're normally in. So
Right.
be
Well, actually, there's a card a
careful.
little lower down where I mentioned that it's
Yeah.
like that's something you've got to be really sensitive to.
So we're gonna
Um,
move on then. We'll get to that. Okay, here we go.
yeah. Age is a big thing, especially for people that are writing YA or writing any characters that are younger than themselves. And the more young they are than themselves, the more challenging it can be. I read the book of somebody where it was mostly teenage characters, and these kids did not sound like teenagers. They just sounded like adults using the language, that the words that the author thought they should say. And it was actually very distracting to read because it didn't sound at all like real teenagers. And so but I also think it's not just teenagers, it's even older people too. You've got to really pay attention to the patterns and the styles of speech that different age groups start to develop as they move through their life, because teenagers speak very differently than an 80-year-old woman or man. And if you're going to have characters of specific ages, that's a really important thing to do. And especially if it's an age you either haven't reached yet or an age that you've been out of for a very long time, you've got to do the research and you've got to listen. And also speech patterns with kids, with teenagers change, like this teenagers of the 50s and 60s were different than the teenagers of today. And so that's the other factor, is you've got to be current with whatever era your book is in. And again, it's about listen, and make notes, record when you can, with permission, as I said.
I've definitely seen books with teenagers speaking, and they're speaking the wrong generation's knowledge.
Absolutely.
So if a book
I
is
have
written
too.
now and the author grew up in the 90s, the author will have a bunch of references to 90s pop culture. And I know as a high school teacher that my kids do not know that stuff.
Right,
But the
right.
author doesn't know what they know and just uses the 90s stuff. So all I can say is if that's what you want to do, you need to set your book in the 90s.
Yeah, right. Well, and also there's that thing where in this one other book I read, the author gave the teenagers this kind of hip, kind of slangy thing, and it was so awkward it made me cringe, because it was like they were trying so hard to make these kids sound real that they sounded completely not real. I think kind of like vernacular, kind of like, patois, any of those things. If you're writing for a group like teenagers that have sort of these words that they use, I mean, I have a teenage granddaughter who, they say words, and they know exactly what they mean, but maybe I don't. And that's the kind of thing you got to pay attention to if you want authenticity in your characters. If I was writing a 15-year-old character now, I would go listen to her, and I'd sit with her and her friends and just start making notes about what words they're using, how they're saying them, how often they giggle in between their sentences, and that sort of observation. And that's what writers need to do.
Yeah, right now, of course, all of us teachers are dealing with Generation Alpha slang.
Yeah.
It's going to date this interview, of course. 10 years from now, nobody's going to know what 6-7 is all about, but
Yeah, no,
going
well,
on right now.
we'll be so old, no one will care, Matt.
It's true. I may already be that old, but
Nah,
not you.
nah,
I'm going
nah.
to move on. Okay.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
This is a good one because my first book, After the Sucker Punch, it's based on a family story. It's completely fictionalized, but it's based on a family story. And I come from a very large family. I'm one of 11 children. And I did not want to give myself that problem in a book. So I reduced the family down to 6 siblings. And it was such a challenge to find specific ways for them to speak so that they sounded differently, especially in the beginning of the book when the reader is just meeting them for the first time. It's not only hard to remember character names and how to introduce those into a story so that the reader isn't going, wait, who is this person? Who is that person? Ah! You have to find ways to kind of fold them in and identify them in ways. Not only do you have to do that, but you have to give them speech patterns and ways of speaking that are unique to them. And sometimes when you're talking about a family or friend groups and families can often have very similar speech patterns just because that's how you just get used to the way your friends speak or the way your family speaks. But as a writer, you can't rely on that. You've got to find ways to identify each of these people uniquely. And that's where you've got to get creative. So if you've got 3 brothers, you've got to figure out ways that each brother speaks that differentiate them from the other ones so that the reader can really identify which each of them separately. And that's just part of the task of writing characters like that.
Yeah. So subject matter definitely is one thing that helps with that. And then
Yeah.
also length of sentences,
Yes.
specific vocabulary words that they like, gestures that they make if you're using the indirect dialogue tag, then
Exactly. exactly.
Referencing, say, J.K. Rowling, how many times does Dumbledore adjust his glasses?
Yeah,
Like that.
yeah,
That's sort of a thing. To become a
yeah,
characteristic. If that could also be overdone, but
yeah,
if you're not using the same characters over and over again, it will probably work out.
yeah. I agree.
You're not writing sequels at this point.
No, I don't think I'll ever write a sequel. It's funny. There was a woman who was one of my consultants on The Alchemy of Noise, and she loved the book, and she kept saying, "When are you going to write a sequel?" And I said, "Maybe when the original one does better in the marketplace." But I don't know. I'm not a sequel or a series person. I don't know. I just haven't been. There's nothing wrong with sequels or series, but that just hasn't been anything I've wanted to do.
Well, I'm definitely a fan of them. As I started off with 4 out of 5 books. I never finished the fifth one. So, but I really loved the characters more and more once I wrote them over and over.
Oh no, and I understand my husband is a huge fan of series. He almost not exclusively, but very predominantly reads books in a series and loves that. And I know so many people who do. So I'm not disparaging that at all. It's just that, and I haven't tried it. Maybe if I don't know, maybe if I decided to do that, I would go, "Oh, this is fun. I see why people do this." But that hasn't been my inclination as of yet. So we'll see if I ever get there. But there's nothing wrong with either series or sequels. Just
No,
want to
of
make that
course.
very clear.
Yeah, and I'm just going to make one. We're going to come back to what we were talking about. I'm just going to make one comment for anyone watching who is of that type. If you want to write a series, the best thing to do is to at least partially plan all along. So just to kind of
Yeah,
where you're going. It's not. It's pantsers are going to have a harder time doing that. Uh,
yeah.
so I'm
Well, the thing that I have found about sequels or series that I really don't like is when I get to the end of the story of, say, the first book, and instead of concluding the story the way that you would if this was a standalone, it ends with, "If you want to find out what happens to these people, get the next book," which, especially if you're not expecting that, can be really off-putting. And I've had that happen now with a couple of books, which I found off-putting because it's like, wait a minute, I just finished and invested myself in this book. I want to know how the story ends. Don't upsell me now on your next book. It feels manipulative to me as a reader.
understand.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't like that. But if it's a series where each book is standalone, but there's another chapter, that's fine. I have
Yeah.
no problem with that.
I didn't do that.
Oh, good.
I,
Don't do that.
I had an ending of the novel, and then after that, then there was some indication of what was coming up in the future
Oh,
one.
sure. Well, that's different. And I have a friend, actually one of Mark's friends, a wonderful writer, Georgia Rose, who writes standalones, but she carries the characters over into different stories. But each of her books is completely complete in and of itself. And that I like.
I did a series like that when I was writing romance as MJ Post. I did a series like that with Misty Parker, where we would have introduce the heroine of the next book as the friend of the heroine of the.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah,
So
that's a
then
good
we would
idea.
just then you would already know the heroine when you went on to the next one.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea.
That was our wonderful City Country series. That was called.
That's like a spin-off in the TV world, right? A character that's part of a series, and then they see that the audience likes that character and they pull that character out and they give them their own series after
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
I fingers crossed that people who read those books did like them. I hope so.
Yeah, we always hope that, don't we,
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah. So we have accents, dialect, patois, and street vernacular. And back to you for this, Lorraine.
Well, we kind of covered a little bit, but I think what this one wanted to point out more specifically is the sensitivity issue. And I know that when I started writing or when I started shopping for an agent, my third book, which was The Alchemy of Noise, it's about an interracial relationship. And I got so much pushback from agents who said, "Oh, I couldn't sell this book. You're a white writer. You're writing a major black character. You can't do that. I won't be able to sell it." And it became a big conversation at that particular time. So that was like in 2017 when I was shopping that. And I became very aware of issues to do with race and culture and appropriation and sensitivity Not so much that I wasn't aware of it before, because in my book I had brought in Black sensitivity readers. And a lot of people hate that idea of sensitivity readers. And I don't, it's a term. I don't know. I call them consultants, to make sure that I didn't cross lines or step outside of my lane as a white person in a way that was offensive or insensitive or just wrong. And I got thumbs up from all of them. They said, you got it. It's great. Perfect. And one thing I did not do was I did not use in any way street vernacular, like writing "yo, bro," or anything that like is identified with, that some people will give to Black characters, because first of all, that's a what's the word? That's a presumption that doesn't apply to everybody. And also, that's when I think white writers get into touchy territory, when they start applying street vernacular to characters they're writing. Although I'll be honest, I saw right as I was writing that book, I read a book by a very famous female author whose name I won't say, and she had Black characters, and she did give them lots of street vernacular and patois. And I was so shocked, because I had just been getting all this feedback from agents saying, "No, you can't do it." But I guess because she was famous, she could do it. But I found it a little strange that
I'm
she
going to
made
throw in a
one
comment.
character. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think that agents, when they just don't feel like taking something, they'll make up whatever reason to
Oh,
say.
yeah, I totally agree.
I
But I had that so universally that the minute they saw that it was a white writer who'd written a story that they had major characters who were Black, they were just no, they wouldn't touch it. But the point is of this particular card is that if you're going to have characters of different cultures. It's really important to be sensitive about how you write their dialogue. And if you're going to use any vernacular or accents or patois or whatever, just be sensitive and do your research and get it to people that are aware of those cultures and have some insight into them, and make sure that you've handled it tastefully, because it can be a big turnoff to readers if you either overdo it or you get it wrong or you do it in a way that could be interpreted as offensive. And I get that everybody's pretty sensitive these days about these issues, but still, I think if you're going to risk having characters of different cultures or um, different ethnicities, you need to do that homework to make sure that the dialogue is appropriate for that character.
I'm going to just I'm going to plug another interview, because earlier today I interviewed Alex Temblador, who has a book about writing diverse characters. So that interview will be going up in maybe a couple of days before this one does. So
Yeah.
viewers can go from this one to that one and learn what
Oh,
else.
great. Yeah. Well, it's an important thing to discuss and have lessons on, because it's important.
Yeah. So I think we're all pretty much in the same place on this stuff. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really good. So then this one.
Oh, this one is so basic to me, and I hope everybody does it. I read every single thing I write out loud, whether it's a Substack article or an essay or a short story or a novel. Um, I have found so much information from reading it out loud that you don't get from not reading it out loud, from just reading it in your head. You hear the way the dialogue flows, you find typos, you find mistakes, you find clunkiness. That's something that every writer should do for every single thing they write, is read it out loud, and read it out loud more than once. Chick Singer, oh my God, I read it out loud 1,000 times, and I still understand there's a few typos in the final in the final manuscript, which is disappointing. But it's easy to miss things, especially when you're really immersed in it, and you become almost insular to what you've written. So when you read it out loud, it just kind of puts it out into the world, and it gives it air and space to breathe. And it's so much easier to hear how it flows when you read it out loud.
Absolutely. I've gotten in the habit now of emailing new chapters to myself because my iPhone can read them to me.
Oh, that's a good idea. Well, that's the next card, which is get somebody else to read it for you. I never even thought about doing that, but that's
Get the
another
iPhone to read your email to you. Yeah,
oh,
it can't
that's a
read your
great
Word
idea.
file or your Google Doc, but it can read your email. So
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. I
it also
mean,
lets me think
however,
about my writing when I'm driving.
yeah, no, that's
I
a good
can't actually
idea.
look at it at that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, that's I think that's the last card, which is you have someone else read it out loud because sometimes, again, you're so immersed in it, you're so close to it that you can't hear it quite the same. And sometimes when somebody else reads it, you go, "Oh, yeah, that doesn't flow," or that's the word I use is clunky because sometimes it just flow and rhythm are really important to me as a writer. And so I want my sentences to flow and I want the paragraphs to flow. And if they don't, they got to be fixed. So having someone else read out loud is a good idea.
And who reads it out loud to you?
Uh, Usually my husband, he's a huge supporter of mine and or I have a friend who will read them out loud for me. Um, I do the thing too where I record them, me reading them, I record them, and then I play it back to myself. And that's because that's sometimes I can't get people to help me out. Um,
But then
and then that
you
way I
can
can
make your
hear
own
it
audiobook
differently.
then.
Yeah. Well, I started trying to do that with my first book and it got all complicated, but I understand it's a lot easier now, but I refuse to use AI to do that. So,
There's technology. I mean, the recording technology has to be fairly good, which has always been an obstacle for me.
exactly. That
But
was the obstacle for me too, was I didn't have a room. I didn't have the right space to be in to get the sound as good as it needed to be. And I had a decent mic, but I didn't have the space. And it became, as I'm reading how to do it, I just got overwhelmed and went, oh, okay, I'm not doing this right now. But hopefully Chick Singer is going to have an audio book and I will be narrating that. So hopefully that won't be too long before that comes out.
well, good, yeah, because you're already a performer, so it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So and yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those people are actors, except some authors can read their own books. I mean, I'd love to, but my voice is not as well suited to it. But
Well,
you
somebody
have a
told me
perfect voice
that
for your own
that
books, I think.
yeah, well, in the publishing company I'm with, the memoirs, the authors who wrote memoirs were allowed to read their audiobooks, but apparently novels they have to hire union actors to do them. And luckily I'm a union actor, so I said I'll do it. So hopefully that'll be happening soon and I'll have an audiobook for you.
So that's the publisher though, because ACX, the Amazon company, does not require that.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
take freelancers of all types.
Oh,
The
I know.
the few books that I have that have audiobook versions, we used actors, which is the
Yeah.
that same books I was talking about before. And unfortunately, I don't own any of them, so
Oh
I
no.
can't go back and listen to them unless I buy them. Yeah,
Oh no.
I don't have a brain. This has been a wonderful conversation,
Well,
and
thank you.
your book is coming out, or when you have another project you want to talk about, just let me know.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. That's really great. I appreciate your support.
The School of Fiction.